Ms Legalista here, aka Attorney Shelia. Okay, I'm going back to the 90s because that is all I can think about when I think about Pras Michel and the Fugees and Wyclef Jean and Lauryn Hill, and I want to sing Ready or Not. That's where I am. But he is in a whole lot of trouble. I have the 2019 information, the 2021 information, the FBI interview, the indictment. I'm going to go over all of that, but not in one video. So let's start with 2019. Let's go back a few years to see why Pras Michel is in court now. Yeah. You guys, the amount of money that they are talking about in this case is extraordinary. It is a lot of money. But I want to go back to this release that the U.S. Justice Department put out. And this dates back to May 10th, 2019. That is how long this has been going on, because this actually has to do with the 2012 U.S. presidential election. But let's jump right in. Entertainer, businessman, and Malaysian financier indicted for conspiring to make and conceal foreign and conduit contributions during the 2012 U.S. presidential election. Now, I know some of you are thinking, well, Shelia, we've been through quite a few presidents since then. And you're correct, but that doesn't mean that they're going to let this alleged crime pass. A U.S. entertainer and businessman and a Malaysian financier were charged in a four-count indictment unsealed today in the District of Columbia for conspiring to make and conceal foreign and conduit campaign contributions during the U.S. presidential election in 2012, announced Assistant Attorney General Brian Binskowski of the Justice Department's Criminal Division. Pras Michel, 46, and Low Taek Jho, 37, also known as Jho Low, were charged with one count of conspiracy to defraud the U.S. government and for making foreign and conduit campaign contributions. You guys, just to give you an idea of what that is, first of all, this foreign money in U.S. elections, that's a no. And then conduit means you're sending money through somebody else without actually naming who the proper party is who made the contributions. Michelle also was charged with one count of a scheme to conceal material facts and two counts of making a false entry in a record in connection with the conspiracy. Michelle appeared today for his arraignment before U.S. Magistrate Judge Harvey in the District of Columbia. Low remains at large. Now remember, this was back in 2019. According to the indictment, let's talk about this money, because look at this amount of money here. According to the indictment, between June 2012 and November 2012, now June, July, August, September, October, November, 6 months. In this 6-month period, Low directed the transfer of approximately $21.6 million in a 6-month period, this says, from foreign entities and accounts to Michelle for the purpose of funneling significant sums of money into the U.S. presidential election as purportedly legitimate contributions, all while concealing the true source of the money. To facilitate the excessive contributions and conceal their true choice, Michelle paid approximately $865,000 of the money received from Low to about 20 straw donors or conduits so that the straw donors could make donations in their names to a presidential joint fundraising committee. Okay, so what they're saying is there was 21.6 million paid to Michelle. He then took 865 of that, gave that to 20 straw donors, who then gave that money to presidential joint fundraising committees. The problem is that money didn't really come from those 20 people. It really came from Michelle. It really came from the people who gave him the money. That's the problem. In addition, Michelle personally directed more than $1 million of the money received from Low to an independent expenditure committee also involved in the presidential election in 2012. The indictment also alleges that by funneling campaign contributions through straw donors, Michelle caused a presidential joint fundraising committee to submit false reports to the FEC, including a false amended report in June 2013. The committee's reports were false because they identified the straw donors rather than Low or Michel as the true source. That is a problem. In addition, the indictment alleges that by contributing more than 1 million of the money he received from Low to an independent expenditure committee, Michel also caused that committee to submit false reports to the FEC. Insofar as those reports identified Michel as the source, when in fact it was Low. So, first problem was the straw donors. Second problem was Michel, was Pras, because in both cases, the money didn't come from either of those parties. It came from Low. So it says that also caused that committee to submit a false report to the FEC. The indictment further alleges that in June 2015, Michel submitted a false declaration to the FEC in which he claimed that he had no reason to conceal the true source of his contributions to the Independent Expenditure Committee in 2012, even though he knew that the true source of the money was Low and that Michel had funneled the foreign money into the election. Low was indicted previously along with former banker Roger Ng in the Eastern District of New York for conspiring to launder billions of dollars and to violate the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. That case remains pending. A reminder, of course, an indictment is merely a charge and defendants are presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. Now, that is a lot. That sort of gives you a bit of an understanding about what is going on in this case now that it has started. But I now want to go over to the 2021 release that the U.S. Department of Justice also put out. So let me see if I can bring that up. A lot of the information is going to be the same. I'll just go ahead and tell you that. But we do want to be up to date with what's going on. Now we have this June 11th, 2021, another release, as you see here, from the U.S. Department of Justice. U.S. entertainer, businessman, and Malaysian national charged with back channel lobbying campaign to drop 1MDB investigation and remove Chinese dissident from U.S. And we're going to talk about what MDB is. It almost sounds like it needs to be an amount of money itself, but it is not. It is not. A federal grand jury in the District of Columbia returned a superseding indictment Thursday, charging a U.S. entertainer and businessman and a Malaysian national with orchestrating an unregistered back-channel campaign beginning in or about 2017. This even predates, I guess it predates the last release, but it comes after what was going on in 2012 with the presidential campaign. In or about 2017, to influence the then administration of the President of the United States and the Department of Justice to both drop the investigation of Jho Low and others in connection with the international strategic and development company known as One Malaysia Development Berhad, and to send a Chinese dissident back to China. So understand for a moment here what is going on. So now they had they had all of this investigation going on with the 2012 campaign. And so now they're jumping in and trying to influence that. And that's what this is. That's what this release is about. According to the superseding indictment, Jho Low and Pras are alleged to have conspired with Elliot Brody, Nikki Lum Davis, and others, and we keep adding people here, and others to engage in undisclosed lobbying campaigns at the direction of Low and Vice Minister of Public Security for the People's Republic of China, respectively, both to have that 1MDB embezzlement investigation and forfeiture proceedings involving Low and others dropped, and to have a Chinese dissident sent back to China. Michel and Low are also charged with conspiring to commit money laundering related to the foreign influence campaigns. Michel is also charged with witness tampering and conspiracy to make false statements to banks. In 2019, Michel and Low were charged in the District of Columbia for allegedly orchestrating and concealing a foreign and conduit contribution scheme. Now, that is what I was just referring to earlier. So this is going back and saying, hey, they were charged with that. For funneling millions of dollars of Low's money into the U.S. presidential election as purportedly legitimate campaign contributions, all while concealing the true source of money. According to the indictment, to execute the scheme, Michel received Low's money and contributed it to both personally and through approximately 20 straw donors. If convicted, Low faces a maximum penalty of 5 to 10 years in prison per count. If convicted, Michel faces a range of maximum penalties from 5 to 20 years in prison per count. A federal district court judge will determine any sentence after considering the U.S. sentencing guidelines and other statutory factors. So that should sort of bring you up to speed. If you have been hearing some of this in the news and wondering why is my Fugees guy on trial? What is going on? Now this brings you a little bit more up to speed so that you can at least follow along and understand who some of these parties are. But stay tuned for an upcoming video where I'm going to be looking at the FBI, one of the FBI interviews. I've got the paperwork on that. We're going to go through that and see what was being said in this interview with Pras. So stay tuned. I hope this brings you up to speed a little bit. You have a little bit more understanding of what's going on with this. Go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. If so, if you're still confused, it's okay. Look, I hear you. There's a lot going on around this. So it may take us all some time to really be able to follow all of this. But I'm going to be following this case and breaking down as much of it as I can. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Mwah. Peace.